Hey everybody, two Alpha Gals here. I'm Debbie Nichols.
And I'm Candice Mathis, and you're listening to In the Tall Grass, where we're sharing stories of reinvention, resilience, and rediscovering joy.
Whether it's facing Alpha Gal syndrome or any other redefining chapter of life, we all have to learn how to navigate the journey through the tall grass. So here we go.
So before we get started, we want to share that our brand new Alpha Gal 101 resource guide is now available. We spent the last few years condensing our most valuable tips and tricks for navigating this crazy condition. You'll find everything from the basics to dealing with some of the more complicated aspects of Alpha Gal syndrome. And we hope it helps ease the overwhelm that comes with this diagnosis.
You can find our all new resource guide on our website, twoalphagals.com. That's TWO alphagals.com. And for a limited time, use code Tall Grass, all one word, Tall Grass, to save $3.
Okay, so today we wanted to come on and do a quick little tick bite on something we talked about in our last blog post of pivoting. And Debbie and her family have been on a journey of trying to eat a little more plant-based.
A lot more plant-based.
All plant-based. So initially we were going to kind of do like a little recap of their past 3 weeks. And then today happened. And so we're pivoting a little bit more. And Debbie's not having the greatest day. And so we wanted to come on and kind of just talk about that in a very vulnerable way. And when we were talking about, kind of the theme of pivoting, it made me think just in our conversation earlier today of, the day not being that great. And it led me to the 3 Ps. So those would be permission, perspective, and pivot. So I wanted to just talk about that a little bit more with you because I think that hopefully it will be encouraging to others. And if we talk more about, our struggle a little bit and how we pivot out of it, I guess, I think it gives others permission to lean into the suck of it too.
Yes. And actually, when you came up with these 3 Ps, just sort of out of the blue, and it was more, I think, through the process of comforting me, if I'm being perfectly honest, it was a moment of clarity for me that I need to lean into this a little bit more. So it's not like there's anything really, really big going on in my life. I'm just having a crappy day, right?
Yeah.
After a crappy night's sleep, which
Right.
just compounds on itself. And I'm not feeling great and I have a headache. And so it was just one of those days where I'm just sitting on the edge of falling apart, right? And maybe falling off that edge a little bit. But it was such a good reminder when you came up with these things, full disclosure. Candice texted me as we're going back and forth about what we're going to talk about. And she said, this just came to me. And it's so true. I think it pulls from what we've talked about so much just between the two of us, as well as with so many of our guests. And I'd love to start by talking about permission because there's so many places that we don't give ourselves permission, especially when we're facing these moments of challenge, right?
Right.
My therapist would probably be the first to tell me that I don't give myself permission to lean into my feelings, right? Like I want to fight them. I feel sad and I don't want to feel sad. So I try to push that away when maybe the better option is to lean into it and feel it and then figure out how to get through it. And that's what you're really giving me permission to do today when we had our conversation earlier this morning and now. So thank you for reminding me that's okay to have those feelings.
Welcome. I know it is. I mean, because I think if we can lean into the discomfort, then it helps us get to a place of comfort faster, I guess. Like when I was texting you that, it's like, I think if you give yourself permission to feel, then you give yourself permission to speak your needs which leads to better advocacy for yourself. And ultimately, you give yourself permission to have a shitty day and to move beyond it, right? Like,
Right.
I think it's kind of this like culmination of things that lead to the next piece that ultimately gives you a little bit more gratitude in a way. But if you don't have the bad days, it's hard to appreciate the good ones.
That's really true. And I think it sort of imitates this whole cycle that we have of dealing with our alpha gal reactions, right? You face them, they're scary, you dive in, you deal with it, you come out on the other side. And the next time, it's a little bit easier to face it. It's a little bit quicker to react from it. And it's definitely faster to recover from it, to come out on the other side. And I think this is the same thing, right? We learn how to deal with them in the best possible way,
Right.
which may not be the way that we've been doing it for 45 years. You know, like it's,
Right. So,
yeah.
what did you give yourself permission to do today?
Okay, I can come up with a list like right off the top of my head. I gave myself permission to go on a walk first thing this morning with the dog, which is like my self therapy. Like if I can put the dog on the leash and I can walk with him and I talk to him, I will admit that he talks back in my voice. I'm not gonna lie. I narrate his stuff.
Oh,
But then I also, like, when I had to do my morning barn chores, I went down and I sat with my barn animals. I've got a rock there right by the barn, and I actually listened to a tapping meditation. I needed a little guidance today because I was sleepy after not having a good night's sleep. So that really helped me stay focused on what I'm trying to stay focused on today, like reminding myself that it can be an okay day, even if it doesn't feel great. I can still get done what absolutely needs to get done. I can let go of what doesn't get done. And also, you know, like when talking about giving ourselves permission, I think it's important to note that, you know, as adults, I feel like we're taking care of people all the time, other people all the time. I can speak personally, and I know you can too, as being a mom and wanting to do whatever it takes to take care of our kids, right? And so sometimes it's a little hard to take care of ourselves. For me, it brings on feelings of guilt. But I think when we have these shitty days, it's important to give yourself permission to indulge in the things that you need, whether that's a walk with the dog or a nap or a good cry, right? To lean into those feelings, whatever it is that you feel like you need. We were talking about a great episode of a trashy television show, whatever it is that you feel
right.
like you need, even if it means doing nothing, right? And not feeling shame or guilt around it, but just allowing yourself to give yourself what you need, giving
Yep.
yourself permission. Yeah.
Yep, absolutely. And I think once you do that, then it helps you to kind of regain your perspective, right? Like it leads into that. And there was a quote I read years ago that said, "This is a bad day, not a bad life." And I kind of come back to that from time to time. It helps keep me in check a little bit that it can be a bad day, but you go from that and you move out of it and you do the things like you mentioned above. The self-care, I think, helps to kind of catapult you out of those bad days, or a friend, or just, crying or venting or whatever you need to do to kind of let it out and let it go. And then it can help you see, okay, what are the things I'm grateful for?
Yeah,
And ultimately, how could I pivot and try something new?
that's right. I mean, it really is. And I love the way that you're saying this because it's not ignoring that
Mhm.
you're having a bad day or a bad incident or a bad time or a bad reaction. It's not ignoring any of that. It's being able to look and say, okay, this is a moment or a season. And from here, I look at where I was and I'm not there anymore. You know, I'm not sick every day. I'm not figuring out why I'm breaking out in a rash or any of that. It's acknowledging that moment, as a part of this big, beautiful, sometimes difficult life, and
Right.
being able to be grateful for that life, even with these like little shitty moments.
Right.
And
It's
then, like you said, like moving on, like figuring out how I'm going to take care of this moment and pivot to return to things not being so crappy, right?
right. Right. That can come in the form of being flexible and trying something new in, relation to food or relation to your support or relation to your provider. It's kind of reevaluating all of these different aspects. And, you don't know, I think we said this in another podcast, you don't know how good you feel until you feel good. Like,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah, yeah, exactly.
so the pivoting it ends up being this inspiring challenge, or at least that's how I look at it now. It's like, okay,
Right.
what will this hurt? It can't, hopefully, it's not going to make anything worse, but
I'm not going to pivot to eat steak again.
right. Do you want to share a little bit more about the pivot aspect of your journey the
Yeah.
past 3 weeks?
Yeah, sure. I love to because Mark and my husband Mark and I watched The Game Changers, a documentary that came highly recommended by Candice and her husband on eating plant-based and still being active and athletic and these things. And it really turned my perspective of eating plant-based or vegan on its head. And my husband's mind was blown. And he's like a meat and potatoes Southern boy, So it was interesting when he was like, I think we should try to do this. And I'm thinking, done, right? It's not that much of a shift for me from eating in my alpha gal lifestyle. Granted, I say that now, and it was easy to just make some chicken as my protein source. And now I have to think a little bit harder about it. But to be honest, I'm having so much fun doing that, borrowing recipes from Candace, who's a brilliant plant-based chef now,
No.
and finding my own too, and figuring out what I'm going to do with it so that I'm not hungry. But for me, even in just 3 weeks, the results of doing this have been unbelievable. Like I can address three people in my household. I can address my husband who did it for his own fitness goals and is seeing we'll just say what he's seeing the needle move faster than he had expected. For me, I'm seeing this drastic reduction in my inflammation. And so I'm going to have to get to the bottom of what's causing that, right? Do I continue eating a plant-based lifestyle? I haven't decided yet, right? We're doing a trial for a month.
Right.
But most interestingly, and this came very unexpected, is my daughter is home from college for the summer. And she decided to do it with us, sort of on a modified, more of a flexitarian basis. And she, in 3 weeks, has noticed these amazing changes in not just her gut feeling better, but also her mindset shifting. She just said she feels more balanced and happier. And it might just be shifting away from that college lifestyle. That could be a big part of it too. But this is the beautiful thing about pivoting, right? Is we're trying something new that seemed like it might be a little bit difficult, not turning out to be as difficult as we expected, but we're having so much fun seeing the results from doing it. So that was originally what we were going to talk about, right? Pivoting so that you figure out.
I'm so excited to hear that. And I think really everyone has a unique situation, and you have to ultimately dig down and see what makes you feel the best. And I think that is kind of an overarching theme of what we do with Two Alpha Gals and kind of in our own personal lives is if it's not working, change it.
Exactly. And I'm so glad you said that too, because I don't want this to be an episode or any of our podcast episodes to be, hey, you should be a vegan, you
Right.
know, because that's not what this is about. This is about identifying issues or problems that you're still having and making what can sometimes be a difficult choice to change things, even when you didn't necessarily think you could. Although I was pretty confident I could do it, I just wasn't confident I was going to love it. And I do
Right.
actually really love it. And I should add my daughter's eating a little bit of chicken and doing fine. That doesn't seem to be and dairy. She's refusing to give up ice cream. I don't blame her
I don't blame her.
at all for that. But that is what living with alpha gal syndrome is. There's too much unknown. There's too much that we just don't know about this yet to know how to live completely right off the bat, right? And it's too broad and too different from person to person.
Right.
So I think all in all, Candice and I would both encourage everyone listening out there, if you're still feeling bad, if you still think that there's changes that need to be made, just try them because you never know what's going to happen. And you will have shitty days here and there, but we have those anyway, right?
Right.
But after my shitty day, which is suddenly feeling a whole lot better after this conversation, I have to admit, I would hope that anyone out there could maybe give themselves a little bit more permission to care for themselves, whether that means pivoting or not.
Right. Yep. I love it. Amen.
Thanks for the perspective. I really appreciate
You're
it.
welcome.
Especially
Thanks
today more than ever.
Thank you for the vulnerability. Until next time, everyone. Thank you for joining us today on In the Tall Grass. Visit us at 2alphagals.com. That's TWOalphagals.com. Or you can find us on Instagram and Facebook at 2alphagals. If you enjoyed listening, please leave a review and help us grow this community.
We're all faced with obstacles on our journey, whether it be food allergies or tick-borne diseases. You might outgrow the reactions, but you won't outgrow the person you become. Ticks suck, but life doesn't have to.